Welcome back to the Jagged Edge. We got a little bit of garbage time finally, and we got a special guest finally. I didn't run from the grind. Shout out Triple H. Zach Goodall. Introduce yourself to the audience that doesn't know about your new position covering the Jacksonville Jaguars.
What's going on, everybody? I'm thrilled to be here with two longtime friends in John and Javal. As I've recently gotten started as the managing editor of the Jaguars Wire over at USA Today's Sports Media Group. It's been a grind. My official start day was literally Monday of draft week, so I've not really gotten much sleep in the past week and a half. And that being said, though, I think we're already over 70 stories published there, so we're churning content out. I was up at the draft and got to ask a couple questions and really get, in with the reporters and the staff there. And it's off to a great start. And I'm thrilled to be here talking about it with you guys.
Yeah, just shout out Zach once again. I know he covered for the Gators. I don't know for which outlet exactly, but if you're a Gators fan, may have seen his work before. So, just from one North Florida team to another, one bad North Florida team to another. So hopefully the Jags are a little better this year. But welcome to have you along. Hopefully we can have you from our pod in the future because anytime we get to see and talk football with our friends, it's always fun. So I guess a
I just
hopeful
want to put it
full-time guest.
I just want to put it out there. One, yes, also putting that out there. But and I really hate to say this, but I was
Uh-oh.
covering the Jags before I was covering the Gators.
That he
And
did.
yes,
The prodigal son has returned.
the Jags, aside from 2017, were really, really bad when I was covering them. And I go down to Florida in my first season there. Great. Everyone's having a great time. And then the second season was the COVID year where it started amazing. And then it all went downhill at the end of the year. And then we've seen where Florida has gone since then. So I hate to cast myself out as like a bad luck omen,
I
charm,
mean,
for lack of a better
after
word. But
last
like,
year, I feel we already had a lot of bad luck without you. So I don't want to say
Yeah.
it can't get worse because it is the Jags, but
right.
Oh,
it would
yes.
have been worse if we just
Famous last
we
words
went
right there,
last year.
Javal. It cannot get
It can get
Cross your
worse, but
fingers, knock on wood, do all that stuff. I hope I'm not the jinx that through two teams I've covered, I've seemingly proven to be.
I was going to say
Well,
if that continues,
every other reporter we brought in kind of feels that way. Mia, we've talked to before. Demetrius, we've talked to before. Shipley, we've talked to before. They've all covered bad Jaguar years. So, what's
it
another,
comes with the team. Although, if this goes on, then you're gonna have to cover the Titans somehow. That we're just gonna make you cover one of. We're gonna make you be our double
The
agent.
Texans, get CJ Stroud out of here somehow. I don't know.
I guess you could say for the Florida State fans and Miami fans
Oh
that
yeah,
also are Jaguars
absolutely.
fans, like I have done their bidding already.
That's
So
true.
yeah, I could do that. I'd live in Nashville for a little bit.
Well, yeah, good to have you on. So, obviously, you did talked about. You did all the articles for draft week. So, kind of give your breakdown of this Jags draft because John and I were talking about it yesterday, and we weren't compared to last year's draft, we weren't as irate, but it was just definitely it was still a weird draft, to say the least. I think with Trent, you can't ever have a normal draft at this point. So give us your thoughts on how the players kind of fit and I guess the process as a whole.
Yeah, I could be really long-winded about this, but I'll try not to be. I
Take your
We
time, man.
like
Take
wrote
we
as long as
like
you go.
long-winded. No, for real, we like it. Makes it seem
well,
smarter
I mean,
having
like
someone else that knows more here.
what you just said is exactly what I thought coming in when I did a mock draft for just the Jags, 7 rounds and a full first rounder, and I thought, even if Trent Baalke has a good draft, like it's always a little weird, right? Like, and I've got to think about how could this be weird, and I don't think I made it weird enough, in fairness, but I did have him trading up, which, I mean,
Oh,
it just
well.
doesn't happen.
They
So
tried.
they
It,
tried, but they've tried and tried again, and
it'll
so I
never
guess it was a little
happen.
weird.
It'll never
Yeah.
happen.
But even with the weirdness included, like I liked it. I liked the weirdness. And I've gone back and forth on like trying to be as like strict a grader as I can be, but also understanding like just the nature of it. I've been between a high C to a low to mid B, depending on when you ask me, because like I get the process, and I think it needs to be weighed. The trade down in the first round, like it was magnificent. I think it was a genius trade, especially to pick up the future ammo. Like those are trade chips for this year when you need maybe a third edge that they still don't have, which dings them points in this grade. But or another corner potential ding for points by not going early enough there. But you see where I'm trying to go back and forth with it. Ultimately, those trade chips are massive, and to get the prospect that they claim was going to be the guy at 17, but even if you don't believe that, the needs were corner and wide receiver. Like that's where they were going first round. They came away with the same guy that was available to them, top rated player left at that position in Brian Thomas. So, I mean, Brian Thomas to me is a really high upside, intriguing prospect. You have the concerns about 1 year of production while he's been utilized quite a bit at LSU. But I mean, the growth at the same time, it was so exceptional, and the explosiveness that he showed this year, like it makes it worth the risk. The athletic upside obviously makes it worth the risk. You want to see him develop a little more play strength. I've said this, and I know I think John Shipley and Gus Logue have said it too. We all kind of see similarities to DJ Chark there, not necessarily just because he's the LSU receiver who's fast and tall, but there are some play strength issues that he's going to have to get better with. But he's young. He's obviously already, I think, 10 pounds bigger than DJ Chark, so he's got a bit of an advantage there. And you see the upside. You see the true, not only an X, but a potential player with his frame, speed, explosiveness can go all around the formation and be a true dynamic number one. So I love that process. I would probably give that pick an A, just with all things considered. You start to question it once you get to second round through really, I mean, every pick until Miles Cole based on the consensus board. All of them were considered reaches there, as John Shipley has reported about. But again, you get the process. Mason Smith, he was someone that before the draft I thought totally looked like a Trent Baalke guy. And looking into it with some other guys before the draft and reporters, looking at his mock draftable web, like screams Trent Baalke when you look at the physical and athletic attributes. And they definitely needed help on the defensive line. The argument was more on the edge, but at the same time, I think Mason Smith realistically can play some strong side end and be a rotational depth piece in some situations to a guy like Trayvon Walker in some forms of how the defense is going to look. That being said, also, I think 4 of your interior linemen are 30 plus years old at this point. So you're obviously looking into the future with this kind of move in Mason Smith. So the injury concern is real. He was on his way to being a first round pick before the injury. I firmly believe that. I talked about it in 2021 when I was looking into the future. I mean, I was covering the SEC and I watched him come in and make some plays against Florida back in 2021. So you knew that the talent was there and there was a strong chance he was going to be a high pick. So again, process can be questioned. Bigger needs there, like corner and edge rusher, and obviously his injury concerns. But in 2 years, we could look back and the people that were questioning the Mason Smith pick might all of a sudden be all about it. Because in that situation, Roy Robertson Harris is gone. Arik Armstead is on the down swing. If we're not to believe that he has another 6 great years in him, I mean, just by averages, like it'll start to wear down. You've got your guy right there in Mason Smith. And I think the upside argument to not be long-winded with the rest of the rounds, it can be applied to Jarian Jones and DeAndre Prince at corner. Javon Foster, even though he's got a lot of experience, he doesn't before college. So there's still upside there that's not necessarily, it hasn't been tapped yet. And he's 23, 24. So it's almost a healthy mix of upside yet experience when it comes to a player like Javon Foster. Even the special teams picks. And I know people hate special teams draft selections. A kick returner in the 5th round and a 6th round kicker are never popular, but they're upside picks. And I think that honestly, Cam Little's selection was a lot better than Keelan's. I'm not a fan of his because he was a good returner. I don't think he was an exceptional returner. He's got good, not great athleticism, and I don't know if he's ever going to contribute to the offense. You could have taken a player who will contribute offensively or defensively and also made them your returner. But again, you see the upside with the special teams rules. They want Robinson effectively to purely focus on being a fantastic returner, and I do get that process. Cam Little's the youngest kicker ever drafted, and I don't care what anyone says. I think they needed to draft a kicker this year because Joey Sly could not be their starter. Arguably, statistically, one of, if not the worst kicker in the league the past few years, and they've just had way too messy of a rotation there at kicker. They needed someone that they're excited about the upside, someone who can get better and fill the position long term. So, long story short, upside everywhere. Even Brian Thomas. I think he's probably the best in terms of floor and upside, but it goes upside the rest of the way. And in a draft like this, where the depth isn't great, and ideally, like, even though they were targeting upside, they still really addressed a lot of needs. You have to feel pretty good about it. So I do go back and forth again between the high C, low B, only because of some of the reaches and some of the players that were there that could have perhaps suited better needs. But in a couple of years, I could come back and say this class was an A or a high B at a minimum, because if all of these players, or a lot of them, do hit as they believe they have the potential to, they will change the course or the trajectory for this team, especially I think that Mason Smith pick.
Well, yeah, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head of how we feel for the most part over here, where I think between both just John and I and a lot of the consensus Jags fans, we're kind of, well, I think once you kind of let the draft simmer a little bit, you can see the vision with a lot of these picks, even if the consensus more will hit. And I've just seen national media kill us and, oh, Bulky reached every single pick. And I don't even necessarily disagree, but I don't think it's bad to reach if you can get good players that can have a role. Because that's really my thing, especially compared to last year's draft when, they took Strain in the second round and nobody saw that coming. And then, even when he was on the field, he didn't really do much. And even if he was to hit, his role would kind of just be a backup run blocking tight end. That's not super valuable. If Mason Smith
And I guess
hits,
what is a reach in this class? I mean, I feel like anything after the fourth round, I don't know how you can really consider one, especially where NIL and the transfer portal has significantly weakened the depth of the class. Sorry to cut you off. It's just
no,
like,
I mean,
I don't
I
really
don't
get it at
disagree.
that point.
It's a good argument, honestly.
I mean, yeah, a lot of people were saying how, this draft class, the depth kind of sucked and it wasn't really great. People were saying, after round 4, it falls off, even round 3 after it falls off. So, I mean, I definitely think they might have been able to get some of the players he drafted at later spots. And I mean, maybe I feel Mason Smith, I don't know as much. Jarian, I think there's a decent chance he would have been available in the 4th round, but I feel if he's a good player and they work out well, it doesn't really matter if it was a reach to media big boards as long as they have a role and they play well. So, it's obviously draft grades us people give the Jags. Some people said they were the lowest rated drafts in the league. They're just killing Bulky. And even as somebody who's been on this, we've both been on this podcast. We've wanted Trent's head on a stake before.
Yeah.
I don't think I wouldn't say A+ grade right away, but I definitely see the potential. And he at least got players at positions that they needed and they have depth. So it's just kind of wait and see. I think the key with this draft, though, the 2 biggest names in this draft that are going to make a real difference aren't even guys he drafted, but it's going to be Raul Nielsen and Chris Richard, because I've just been talking about how when you bring in defensive coaches and they can kind of get an upgrade, you have athletic talents. It's now up to the coaching staff to get the most out of those guys. And, Richard, when he was in Seattle, developed 5th round pick Richard Sherman, Brandon Browner. He developed a lot of late round picks at corner. He didn't have to get Richard Sherman wasn't a 1st round pick, They got guys later in the draft, developed them. Brian Nielsen, he's done a lot of work developing defensive linemen over time with the Saints, and then he didn't really develop a lot of guys in Atlanta, but he did help those players get more production than you would have thought. So to me, it really just depends on they have the upside in this draft. Now it's up to the coaching staff to unlock the players. And for what it's worth, I think they have 2 good defensive coaches on staff who might be able to get some more, he can maybe get some more production out of these players who teams might have said, oh, he's a 5th round pick, he's just going to be a backup. So we have to really see how everything plays out.
For sure. And just looking at trends as well, because we took 2 LSU defensive linemen, for God's sake. Do you think Zach, do you think that's more on Balky kind of looking at the trends of the NFL free agency a month prior, to where they are paying a bunch of interior defensive linemen, and it also correlates to having guys in house like Matt House and Ryan Nielsen, who are kind of sons of the Ed Orgeron defensive system. So having that familiarity with some of the coaching staff, along with guys like Balky, who loves the traits that those two have. How much did that impact Jacksonville making those like two selections in particular last
Yeah,
week?
I think it all correlates. I mean, even though he didn't coach Brian Thomas, I think
Yeah.
I'm sure Matt House even offered some advice there or some insight there pertaining to what kind of player he could be. And I find the hate on him kind of funny because he was brought here to be a linebackers coach, and I know he wasn't a
Hmm.
good defensive coordinator, but like it's just not the same thing. He's just coaching a position and like that is what it is. So like he won't even really be working with Mason Smith or Jordan Jefferson, but he obviously like of anyone in college is able to give as accurate and detailed a scouting report on these guys on and off the field as possible. And I'm sure that played a huge part in it. And Ryan Nielsen too, obviously knowing Ed Orgeron. And granted, Jordan Jefferson wasn't there for the Ed Orgeron days. He was there with the year with House, but he had transferred from West Virginia. Compared to Mason Smith was the number one player in Ed Orgeron's final recruiting class at LSU. He was consensus 5-star, prize of the class from Terrebonne. So I don't know exactly where it is relative to Baton Rouge in Louisiana, but I mean it's obviously a school they recruited and they were familiar with him from the jump as a recruit. So Ed Orgeron is known of Mason Smith for now 7 years probably. And for Ryan Nielsen to have that kind of relationship with him, and obviously these other coaches, and the coaching world's small. Like they obviously had a lot of intel coming from a lot of different places, but undoubtedly it gave them an advantage when it came to understanding even Mason Smith's injury. I mean, if anyone in the NFL again knows about Mason Smith's injury, it's someone that just so happens to be on Jacksonville's defensive coaching staff. So huge upside. I mean, we'll see how they pan out. The Jordan Jefferson pick to me was interesting only because while he might be a good player, that is one where I don't love the value. He's a role limited player. He was never really a good pass rusher. He's going to play early downs. You're not going to get fourth round value out of him, I think, unless he's like a perennial all pro nose tackle or Pro Bowl nose tackle. And we'll see. But ultimately, yeah, you see a lot of Tigers, and I think that there's a good reason for it.
And Ed Orgeron by you voice Go Tigers. But
Go
yeah,
Jagged.
just I mean, I think it does make a lot of sense. Obviously, with the Man House connection, he's very comfortable. He knows a lot of those players. Even I mean, he didn't coach the offense, but obviously he saw Brian Thomas in the field, so he was able to say, probably a lot of the character of those guys. So made them feel good about everything. I guess to me, I do agree with the Jefferson pick, where I think he can definitely be a valuable player. I do think, for a nose tackle that wasn't going to rush the passer much, you might have been able to get him a little bit later. I mean, even when I think about when they drafted Devon in 2020, I think Devon had a little more pass rush upside coming out of Ohio State, so we went third round. And I mean, for the first few years, he really wasn't a great pass rusher, so but he was still good at run defense. So it's one of those things where I do think that even the pick value isn't great. I think he can contribute, especially with Devon coming. He had the injury, so even if he should be healthy this year, you definitely want to have more depth stopping the run. I just think back to when we were getting blown off the ball by Tennessee and how bad that run defense was. So even though I don't love the value for the pick, they definitely did need more depth. I mean, just trying to get more guys, get more buys in the rotation, fresh new guys, just I've always had the Adam Gottsises of the world and kind of just on the roster. And I'm not saying he's a bad player, but try to even just get a little bit younger at that depth position. You don't want to just have a bunch of older guys, no upside. At least with Jefferson, even if he's just a nose, he's going to be younger, a little bit cheaper, cost controlled, and they have familiarity with him. So, I
Right.
just I still would have maybe preferred if they went another position and then got him in the fifth round, but at least the picks all make sense. I can see a world where they can contribute and play. And I say, okay, yes, here's the plan for these picks. It's just that's the thing. I just have to compare this year's draft to last year's draft, and everything just looks a letter grade higher, even with the reaches. So
Yeah, I mean, even like with Jerry and Jones, it's, he's obviously, I think, a much more important role than a nose tackle at this point because nickel is base. But like that's a position specific player. And I know the Jags said that they feel like they could play him outside. He wasn't really that good
He
outside.
was not
Kind of
good
started putting it
outside.
together, but he was great in the nickel. So sure, did they reach on him by a little bit? Maybe. I've talked to some people who think that that kind of was his sweet spot, end of third, early fourth. So maybe he would have been there at 114. Not a guarantee he would have been. So for them to maybe have reached a little bit, and yeah, they were targeting a need rather than best player available, sure. But this is a decently built team that had needs that like you couldn't get past this draft without addressing. We saw last year, granted they didn't address the edge, a sans a seventh round pick. But last year, the edge was a perfect example, even with as well as those guys played. Like they needed more depth on the edge. Everyone knew it going into the draft. Everyone knew walking out of the draft. Everyone knew it all season long. And it was true. Now, this year, for the most part, again, not necessarily edge, but at nickel corner, they were like, hey, we have to be intentional about adding a nickel corner. And Jerry and Jones might be one of the better, if not the best nickel corner in this draft. Pure nickel corner, I should say, not flex in and out type of guy. So I get it. At 90, basically a fourth round pick with a compensatory selection at that point, I get maybe reaching a bit for someone that you see path to playing time, path toward fitting in the defense sooner rather than later.
I mean, just in terms of the fact that he's an MJD fan and just the passion. That's the thing. Even if you're not, they think the player itself might have the value wasn't great. I just love the player, just his personality. I can tell he's going to be a great locker room dude already. So his family had the perfect Duval. I mean, just come on, what more? He was meant to be a Jag. So I really can hate on that too much. And I guess the one pick where I'm kind of just really iffy on is Keelan Robinson. I mean, I I don't hate it because if you draft a good special team in the fifth round, then that's a good pick. It's really just a matter of, they got Antonio Johnson last year in the fifth round, and he was able to contribute on defense and special teams. So I think Keelan, I mean, unless he beats out Dearness Johnson, and they only carry three running backs, maybe Keelan does see some scat back kind of snaps, but it's not my favorite pick, but at the very least, I'm glad they're trying to get ahead of the special teams role, even if it doesn't work out great. At least they're trying to get more returners and try to take advantage of it. So I'm not upset. Just I've done things a little bit differently, but once again, just compared to last year's process, it makes me a lot more calmer because they didn't take a blocking tight end in the second round that
Right.
nobody even thought was going to go until round four. So it's we really just have to see. But I'm decently excited for training camp, which is scared because I hate having hope for this team. That's why I want to see. I want to see the power rankings and the draft grades us be low because the Jags always play better when teams don't expect them to do good. So I want the negativity from the outside.
Yeah, shout out to the Athletic who I forgot who it was, but they put the Jaguars at
Josh
26.
Kendall, 20,
Yeah,
yeah.
26 in power ranking. So shout out to that guy. Like,
I'm,
Oh, wow.
I mean, I was gonna say I can see it's not being great, but do they have the Raiders ahead of us, the Patriots ahead, the Commanders, teams with rookie quarterbacks? I mean,
I mean, any coach can just look at that, and then the first time they're back in rookie mini camps, as well as whenever the veterans are back, that's just plastered on the wall. Hey guys, I mean, you shouldn't really care to me
hopefully
things,
it's
but
better than the 31st O-line shirts. I don't want it to be ranked 26 and then play the 27th
but
best
that's the
team.
whole team
So
though. It's
But
not just one position group. At that point, it's just like,
but
hey
so that's
guys.
but so that's my question is like sans the offensive line, which I mean, I guess you can argue is better with Mitch Morse to what degree, I don't know. But
Yeah,
like
that's how much does not playing Luke Fortner affect an entire
yeah.
offensive line? That's
And
just
and
my
aside from
biggest
that,
question.
but aside from that, like isn't a lot of the team better in
I
theory, or at
I
least as
mean,
good as it was?
corner is the
Like how is
only
that
kind of
26?
question, but
But even that, like I think Ronald Darby is probably a fine fill-in for Darius Williams when you consider Williams wasn't going to fit the scheme. You know,
Yeah.
Darby is proven to be good in this kind of scheme, so it feels like a push. Like I'm not trying to say like Jacksonville's like a slam it, put it in ink top 10 team, but like 26 just seems outrageous. Like I don't know. Maybe I'm drinking a little bit of Kool-Aid there, but you look
I
at what they
know.
did
I
in
think
free
it's just the
agency.
sour. It's probably just a sour taste of losing so many games toward the end of last season too. Because I'd
I
probably,
guess. But they
that's just
still
me.
beat some good teams throughout the year too. So
I
like I don't know how 26 I don't know how they're a bottom 6 team just because of what happened last year. Again, like you got the
Yeah, Trevor
quarterback in
was playing
place.
hurt. Defense fell apart with the old scheme.
The wide receiver room is probably deeper, all things considered.
Yeah,
Is there going to be a learning curve?
let's
But
talk
like,
about the undrafted free agent class because everyone talks about Josh Cephas from UTSA. I'm not too well versed in a lot of the, UDFA guys. I just know about Cephas and Proctor that Javal and I talked about yesterday. Do you have any tidbits on that undrafted free agent class more than we know?
I still need to get to know it a bit more too, only because like I just didn't get to know the class as well in the transition. But
Yeah.
I mean, Cephas obviously has quite a bit of hype. David White, another receiver, he was also a Shrine Bowl
Yeah.
contributor. Um, and now I'm blanking because they signed 5 receivers. But was it him or was it Wayne Ruby that was at
Wayne
Mount Union?
Ruby, the guy with like 30 touchdowns 1 year at Mount
Yeah,
Union.
pride of Cecil Shorts.
Exactly.
If for
What
those
a
that don't
callback.
remember.
Not a fourth round pick
Yeah,
for the Jaguars, but still, like what a random year to have like 30 touchdowns. Like, how does that even happen? You don't get even drafted. If I saw that, if I'm a scout, or just I saw that as someone with like a seventh round flyer, be like, hey, this guy caught 30 touchdowns in one season. Is this guy any good? Well,
yeah.
screwed.
I
I don't
mean,
know.
like
I'm not an
maybe
NFL scout for that reason. You can't even
I
look
mean
at
maybe he
like
runs yeah, maybe
yeah.
he runs like a 4.7 or something, but like 30
It's like James
touchdowns is
Robinson too,
insane.
It's like he scored like a lot of touchdowns here. Is it worth kind of like taking a look? I don't know, but he ran like a 4.65 and he tore his ACL. Now his legs are forever ruined. So I get it, but I'm not an NFL scout for that reason.
Do you
Never will
have
be in that room.
anything to say about Lorenzo Lingard, the running back? I know he transferred from Florida a couple years back, and now he went finished his career at Akron, so he's going to come into camp. I don't know anything about him, but I figure I might ask you as our Gator guy.
He 5-year college contributor, I believe. He started as a near, if not consensus, 5-star prospect out of Orange City, I think. Ended up at Miami and got off to an incredible start, all things considered. He rushed for like almost 6 yards per carry, scored 2 touchdowns as a freshman, rotational role, but like was really looking like a potential player. And by the end of the year, I forget exactly what it was, but he suffered a brutal knee injury. It may have been tears in both the ACL and MCL, if not fully. I don't want to mischaracterize it, but I know it was a significant knee injury. It took him some time. He couldn't even play the next season. After that, he transferred to Florida. Still, I think was trying to just knock rust off and really never got out of a depth role. Although in his final season, it kind of looked like the Miami situation where like the 5 or 6 times he got the ball or 10 times or whatever, he looked like someone that could make some plays happen. He made some things shake. So for him to go to a school like Akron, several years removed from the injury and in much better health, it didn't surprise me to see him finally, churn out some production up there. I wouldn't really bank on him being someone that makes the roster at this point. They're so invested at running back anyway, even with the Robinson situation now, like he'll take a spot there. Um, but I mean, who knows? I mean, at a minimum, maybe he'll be a fun story to tell throughout the preseason. Because yeah, I mean, at this time last year, it didn't really look like Lorenzo Lingard even had a football future. He had barely done anything in 4 years of college, and I'm not even sure if people were expecting him to end up making it somewhere in the transfer portal. So really cool to see him get a little bit of cash here as he makes his way to Jacksonville.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I don't know too much about the rest of the UDFAs, but just kind of curious to see. I mean, I think there's been, I don't know how long the streak's been that the Jags have always had a UDFA make the roster over the past how many years. Shout out Neck Brace Con. So,
Yeah,
that's where
shout
Tony
out Neck
does,
Brace Tony. Let's go. I
that's
saw him
where,
twice for sure throughout the last week, so it was just very funny seeing him talk to the audience at his neck brace too, before and after the AW shows in Jacksonville that same week.
He's a trip.
But
He's
yeah,
definitely that for sure.
I guess yeah, we'll really see how rookie minicamp coming up with any of the UDFA's. I mean, they obviously they let go of Zay Jones, but they got 5 UDFA receivers as well as drafting Brian Thomas. They signed Gabe Davis. They have receivers from last year. So I don't want to be tricked because I just remember last year when they had guys in camp. They had Seth Williams, Elijah Cooks, and Tim Jones, and all these guys in camp. And who Jacob Harris, they had guys who okay, the receiver room was kind of deep in training camp, and then it didn't really amount to much. So
But
I
here's,
don't want to
sorry
get
to cut you off again, but like here's, I wrote about this today, and this is exactly how I look at it. It's kind of a one for one thing. They got younger. I think they got deeper. And aside from Christian Kirk, they got way cheaper than what it would have been if they paid Ridley, right?
Yep.
They one for one replaced Zay Jones with Gabe Davis,
Yep.
right? That's how I look at it. They one for one replaced Ridley with, granted, a project that is high ceiling, potential lower floor, but first round pick Brian Thomas. They replaced Jamal Agnew, who they have at times tried to incorporate or depended on for depth, with Devin Duvernay, who's more proven as an actual receiver than Jamal Agnew was throughout his career.
Mhm.
You're legitimately 4 deep right there. I don't really feel as though they ever were legitimately 4 deep, because even Zay, like, he was a solid player, but that it was limited in what you were going to get. So like, to me, and again, maybe this is drinking some Kool-Aid, but just if you're to one for one and look at it from the potential for future production, the cost control, and the age, I feel like they're deeper at receiver. And I and I was critical of them letting Calvin Ridley go, but like, you can look at it back in hindsight now and say things kind of worked out. I mean, as long as Brian Thomas hits, kind of worked out.
Definitely for
yeah
sure. A lot of more money freed, especially now. You still have we talked about it yesterday, $30 million left in cap space. And they have been said to probably go after a third edge. They might go for another corner to add to the room. And there's looming extensions for Trevor Lawrence, maybe Travis Etienne if they want to do that route. So because the word of the street is that Trevor Lawrence is gonna get paid and paid relatively soon. So, there's a lot more options and leeway. And I'm pretty sure Balky doesn't want to make the same mistake last year, not getting that third edge. Because, you can't really, I think, go to the season with Travis or, Gibson there as your third edge going into this season.
Yeah, it's been remarkable that Josh Allen and Trayvon Walker have been as healthy as they've been. It literally takes one hit, and Gibson is your edge, or Mason Smith maybe is your edge. Roy Robertson Harris, because he's leaner, like, I guess maybe becomes a strong side defensive end, but like, that's what you're. Obviously, they've got the undersized player in Yasir Abdullah, and maybe some other guys you can move around that just are not fits. But yeah, they need a real edge. That's a position that plays 30 to 40% of snaps on a good team if they're an adequate player. It probably shouldn't be Dewan Smoot at this point, and probably good that they realized that it's not Kalavion Chase on. That wasn't going to work. Yeah.
yeah we John and I had the bet
Oh
last year
my
that
God.
if Chason had 5 sacks, he'd have to get custom sack guru jersey. So thankfully for our wallet's sake, that didn't come true. But yeah, I guess just in terms of remaining roster holes, I would just, me personally, maybe, I mean, it is free agency, so not gonna be a lot of great offensive linemen available. But if you even got one more depth guard, I mean, I know they have Cooper Hodges coming back. I mean, they have Javon Foster, who maybe plays some more guard this year because you have Walker Little as, so either Foster might be your tackle 4 or your backup left guard. I don't know yet, but I would maybe have like to have one more offensive lineman just to have more depth, because even though I think getting not starting Fortner will be nice, I don't want to put all our eggs in the well. Fortner is not here. The offensive line's going to look good. So it would have been nice to have more depth, and then just having that third pass rusher, which, at least with pass rusher, there's plenty of vets available that can fit the scheme. I remember I heard that on Jag Report, Shipley was saying that the Jazz wanted more of an edge who could also play on first and second down. So they definitely want a guy who can contribute with stopping the run as well. So we'll really see. I just hope that they don't go into camp and then just say, "Hey, we're gonna give Josh and Trevon 90% of the snaps again," because that's just not a. There's so many teams in the NFL have good pass rush rotations. You just want to keep your guys fresh. So, I'll keep saying I'm waiting for it to happen. Just whenever they sign their third edge, that'd be great. I'm just John brought up Carl Lawson. Even Emmanuel Ogba. Just get a guy out there who can be solid. I'm not asking for 10 sack third edge, but just, literally anything is better than what they had last year, which to their credit, Travis Gibson is already an upgrade over what they had last year. So they haven't done nothing, but I would want to have another guy in the rotation. So you can have a backup for both Josh and Trevon. Because I think if I had to guess, Trevor's probably more of that speed kind of guy that Josh might be his backup for. So if you have another guy who can replace Trevon. I mean, you talked about Roy Robertson Harris. Maybe they get kind of funky, place him or Mason Smith on strong side, but just trying to have another guy who's played edge before with experience because, I just so many teams in the NFL are trying to get a good rotation of pass rushers, and we have two good ones, but well, three if you count Eric Armstead, but you all definitely want to have more depth. And they double dip that defensive tackle, which I think is not a bad move. So it's just, hey, are you going to complete the rest of the room, get another edge? Because if they do, I think the front seven is actually pretty solid. I mean, I don't want to jump the shark too much, but if Nielsen can work some magic, I mean, you have Josh, you have Trevon, you have Eric Armstead on the inside. Those are three solid pass rushers right there. I mean, Trevon still has some work to do, but he's getting better. Roy Robertson Harris he's a good backup depth tackle. I mean, for what it's worth, he's good depth to have. It's just from there, can you fill the rest of the room and get more guys? So I really see
Yeah,
how the depth of this team will look.
I was thinking I know it's very sentimental, but guys like Calais Campbell who can play a bit of edge, guys like Yannick Ngakoue, when you did say that they wanted to bring someone that can pass the run, but that there are set roles to improve this team going forward, going back to more of a 4-3, getting away from the 3-4, guys who have known to have production in those, roles that were kind of missing still in that defense. Any chance for a reunion for the sentimental purposes? Jacksonville, maybe? I don't know.
I mean, like I agree. Calais is honestly one of the first players I think of. He played for Nielsen. He had like 6.5 sacks last year, so he's still adequate at rushing the passer. And I think as he's gotten older, he has moved a bit more inside. I mean, we even saw
Hmm.
that a bit in Jacksonville, but like if he's a 25% snap guy, you want someone that can defend the run, especially. He kind of is a perfect fit for that strong side end on early downs at this point in his career. I think that would make a lot of sense.
Fans would love him too. I mean, you can legit even, throwbacks are coming back. If you want like a throwback type of player to get a throwback jersey, Calais might be a fun person. I don't know. That's just me being too sentimental, me thinking about throwbacks right now. Because my
I mean,
wall,
it's like
because
it's
Javal talked about it earlier, we
yeah.
saved money on not getting Sack jerseys. So now we can use that money for
Yeah, I was
throwback gear for this season whenever they want to release it. Why are they
I
waiting?
mean,
I don't know. I just want to see it
it's
now.
it's definitely nostalgic and sentimental. And I think that's kind of why it makes perfect sense. And I know teams don't operate like that, but like again, you pair that with how he would fit and be it kind of fits a need. It makes sense. But my question now is, he was with Ryan Nielsen last year. Maybe he is just taking his time to wait and figure out where he wants to go post draft. But also, I guess my question is, if they were interested in him, why hasn't that happened yet either? So I'm fascinated. I mean, yeah, they've got a lot of options, a lot of decent free agent options, and quite frankly, a lot of guys out there have played more than 20% of the snaps for their teams last year. I think three of the free agents still out there, including Unique, are over 50%. So these are capable players who obviously are not going to like Jacksonville has the money to spend and they're not going to break the bank on any of these players. I think that it would be very wise for them to go out and make an addition there.
Speaking of how they have cap space, do you think that the Jags are going to do anything with the cap space this year, or is it more so just, hey, we're going to have money in our pocket. If we want to make a trade, we can. But if we want to do anything, we need to. But or do you think they're just kind of chill? Because I feel they could either try to be a little more aggressive and fill out the roster, or just kind of use that money for insurance, which as long as they do something smart with it, it's fine. So, but what do you think
I
they
feel
could
like
do?
it could be both. I mean, last year they showed a willingness in the season to trade to upgrade a position with Ezra Cleveland. Now, how it went, whatever. But they showed the willingness to do it, you know. And again, those third and fourth round picks they picked up from Minnesota are immensely valuable, I think, for specifically that. If they want another corner, they don't feel as though Darby is sufficient enough, or they want to improve the depth and or just get another stud or whatever the case may be, they can do that. They can do it on the edge. Um, I bring you said the offensive line earlier and how you wish that maybe they had added more depth and pairing with Ezra. I guess that one of the biggest, I guess, things to look back on from this offseason is the bigger picture question there. Multiple years in a row, they've kind of run it back with the same unit. Sans again, like Mitch Morse coming in for Fortner, but Fortner is still definitely a part of this line. He'll be one of the first players to step up in the event of injury. Same thing with Tyler Shatley coming back, Walker Little being your swing hybrid guard slash tackle, and of course the front five is largely the same. We saw how that went last year when they were trolling everyone about being like number 31, and then they might as well have been number 32 last year. Where I guess like I understand believing in the players you got, and I understand they had injuries, but I'm at a point now of where does the confidence really come from aside from Anton Harrison at this point? Like, really, if you're going to look at that line and identify one true, like, that's a good player. Right now, Brandon Scherf's fine. He's older. I'm kind of surprised he's been as durable as he's been in his time with Jacksonville, which makes me fear that, an injury could be inevitable. And I don't
Ticking
want to
time
predict
bomb.
that, but
Yeah.
that's all that in Washington, he was hurt, what, almost every year. So like amazing that he's gotten this far. And maybe I'm wrong, but when you factor in talent, age, injury history, I look at this line and say, wow, you've got one really good player. Mitch Morse might be a second, but even he is 1 or 2
Up there.
year deal
Yeah.
and up there in age. So they maybe should have done even more than just looking into depth. Again, I don't know exactly where the confidence can come from at this point, and maybe they just know a lot more than we do, and maybe the injury rotations, Ben Barch being not good last year, just was all it was. But we're at a point now where I think it's fair for people to question where is this coming from? Where is this confidence in this specific core of offensive linemen that have been here now year over year? Where is it coming from? Because statistically and on film, it certainly doesn't warrant total confidence.
And to prove your point, how many injuries did Trevor Lawrence end to land last season? And that's your biggest answer at the end of the day. We should have
Literally.
easily, after that Texans win, should have easily won the AFC South. Like I said, Javal and I repeated over and over again, 99% chance to make the playoffs, 99% chance to win AFC South. You somehow fumble it toward the end of the season because
And
you got
even with how bad they were at keeping their quarterback healthy, they were worse at run blocking. Somehow they allowed their quarterback to get hurt 4 individual times throughout the year with different injuries, and also managed to be worse at allowing Travis Etienne to do anything as the year went on.
I
I don't
mean,
know.
we'll really see. I mean, I don't know if it's just is Roucher not a great offensive line coach? Is the talent just there as on injuries? I mean, I think it's probably a little bit of all three. Where obviously they had Bart start, and then the left guard was a rotation. And even when they got Ezra, and his defense, I mean, he didn't have a training camp. He didn't have the time to really get that chemistry, which offensive line is a lot about chemistry and getting as a unit. So, but I don't know. I'm just that is the one thing where if I did have to give some pause, the O line and maybe still an out the cornerback depth, just because I feel pretty solid about most parts of the team, but just the O line. I mean, they didn't do nothing. I mean, they drafted Javon Foster, they signed Mitch Moore, so they got two guys that weren't here last year. It's just, do they do enough to increase the starting? I'm honestly surprised that Cam's still on the roster. Not even gonna hold you. I mean,
I'm
I
more
know they
surprised that
love.
Scherf is still on the roster. I thought
I
that's
mean,
the
yeah, just between
prime
two of those
cut.
players.
Find someone cheaper. No, they decide to run it back. I don't know why Balky loves I mean, I get it. You want to put more faith in
You
your own
want to get
guys, but
vets, but at the
yeah.
same time, if the vets aren't producing and
And he
they're
was
not
playing. I feel
cheap.
like he was on the injury list every week to the ever after the bye week. I feel like. Am I
That's
wrong?
where
Was
my
I going
question
crazy
comes
about that?
from. No, like I mean, he had the how many games has Cam missed in the past 2 years, whether it be to injuries, which he's had multiple, or a
Suspension.
suspension. And again, like Scherf is peaking relative to lacking injuries, but his entire
He was still
career,
banged up.
yeah, both of these guys are approaching, if not over 30. Scherf is definitely 32, I think, and Cam is going to be 30 soon if he's not already. Like, I don't know where they're super high paid, like good players at best right now. I don't think either of them are close to great anymore. Or like I guess good is close to great, but like they're getting further away from great when they were at their peak than getting closer to it. So I don't get it either. Yeah, I
Cam
firmly
is
expected
28,
one of
turning
those guys not
29
to
in
be here.
October, by the way, if you were wondering
Oh
about the
wow, I'm
age.
surprised I was off that much. But he's been playing now what, like 7 years?
9 years. It feels like
2017.
forever.
Yeah, because he was his rookie
2018,
year was 2017. Now I remember his
20,
rookie year was
2017. Yeah,
2017. So I mean he's been here for a while. I mean,
And like tackles can play long, sure, but again, like he's never been a
healthy
fantastic. He's never been
or
an elite tackle. Yeah, health issues, um, the suspension again, which is fine. Like it's one suspension, but like it's a
he's
lot of
not
money.
super reliable. Yeah, that's my thing with Cam is that he's a fine player. The contract they gave him, I mean, it's not the best tackle I mean, there's guys who play more, but
And they've
I don't want to.
drafted to try and replace him before, at least once, and it didn't work. Like, why
I
keep
mean,
settling?
to be honest, I still think that Walker might have more upside than that's just me though. I mean, I feel that there really hasn't been a drop off when you put maybe run blocking, but in terms of pass blocking, Walker to Cam, there really was not much of a drop off. So and I'm not upset with keeping Walker as a swing guy because we saw injuries happen and he's definitely a little bit overqualified. So I don't know. It's just the offensive line is still the one thing where if we are the 26th ranked team on the power rankings, I think it probably will just because the offensive line didn't do enough, especially with run blocking. So, I'm just
Yeah,
trying
that's
to
fair.
I'm just trying to hold my expectations.
So I can do.
Hey,
Put cold water over it. And then the throwbacks will be released, and then I'm gonna be all 17-0 once again. Once I spend like
you've
hundreds more dollars on this team more than I really should.
you've earned the patience over the years. You have the right to want to wait and see.
Of course, always. But other than that, I feel like I had enough of my Jag talk. I wanted to get a bit with it with the Javal yesterday, but he wanted to save it till we
Wait,
have a third person. Unless you want another, one more thing to leave it on for the Jags, Javal or Zach.
real quick. What are we? How are we feeling about the numbers that they dropped for the jersey updates? We got Armstead rocking 91, clean. Darby rocking 25, great corner number.
Yeah, I still
Gave
don't know
it
his too.
Game at
gave
zero.
at
That's
zero. I don't
yeah.
know. I don't want to. I
I
don't
saw
want to
the
be biased.
jokes. I
I
saw the
don't.
jokes.
I don't want to be biased because I was a Ridley homer because Broward, but I don't know. I feel the zero works better for. I have to see it, but I don't know. I feel Gabe with zero is the poor man's version of
As
zero.
somebody who had Gabe Davis in fantasy football last year in one of my leagues, I was used to his name being associated with the number zero from time to time.
Jesus.
So that was a joke I saw too, but I actually had him on a fantasy team last year. I was like, you know what? Yeah, that kind of works out too. So
Kind
I
of
don't know.
real.
I saw the
Yeah.
jokes.
Yeah. But I
Yeah,
think he's
just
in a better, like to make my point from earlier real quick, I think he's in a better position to produce than he was in Buffalo last year, at least.
yeah. I
Yep.
mean,
Or Stephon Diggs. I mean, fuck that guy now that he's in our division. I mean, you know.
he'll be wide receiver four in terms of targets. I mean three to start four, but I guess we'll see with Gabe. And then Josiah DeGuara, wearing 81. Good full I mean good tight end number. Can't complain. Duvernay with 12. Strong.
Okay.
No complaints there.
Punt kick returner number. I like that. Number 12 returning kicks.
Shot, the DD Westbrook continuing that legacy.
What a
Travis
legacy.
Travis Gibson at 50 again, strong for a.
Rest in peace,
I
Shaq
feel
Quarterman. Thank you for killing Derrick Henry that 1 year for us.
I feel yeah,
The
it's kind of
Kingslayer.
for a edge. 50 is kind well, not 50 is still good for edge rusher, so we'll see that. Dearness Johnson, he took Ray Sean's number at 2. I think that's the huge stock up. I mean, I thought Dearness had some potential, but now it's number 2, or is there? We're not going to talk about number 10 because we don't talk about the backup quarterback on this pod. We just hate Mac Jones, but I guess he has his old number back. Cool for him. Then Mitch Morse, who took Linder's 65. So, that's
We're
that's
used to
good right
that.
there.
Yeah, that's good juju right there.
We're used
I'll
we're
take
used to
that good
having a
juju.
good center wearing 65. So hopefully keep what did Fournette wear 79?
Ugh, disgusting. He still
That
does.
is
What do you mean? He's on
that is
you're talking
that
like
is
he's not on this
horrorless.
roster
He needs to
still.
change it. Maybe that's what he just needs to change his number because
Yeah.
79 for a center is not it. And then Riley Patterson with the DB number 38.
I love
Whatever.
the
Yeah.
I love the numbers
He's
for the
not Cam
kickers.
Little
I love the
anyways.
30s for the kickers. I don't know why. I just love it.
And then we knew it wasn't gonna be 21, but Savage with 6 again.
Oh,
Stock up.
I wish. Yeah, that's a
I,
good.
I know for him he
He's-
wants to wear 6 because he started at 26 in Green Bay and then went to 6 when he got changed. So I
But
guess
the
that's just his
jerseys,
number.
21 would be
I
great for
know
the
21
jersey.
Savage would have sold out.
Yeah, it would be.
A 21 Savage throwback jersey would have sold out in hotcakes.
No,
But
don't make me sad now. That would have been the move.
okay, but yeah, I guess
Crazy.
one last jersey question is outside of Trevor, who's the first throwback jersey y'all are gonna buy? Okay, outside of Trevor and Josh, because I feel those are the 2 easy ones.
I'm
I
not
was
gonna
gonna do
buy a
Trayvon.
jersey now. I can't do that.
He
working
can't
with
do
Jags.
that. He's not.
I
He's
can't buy a
employee.
jersey. Yeah,
Oh,
I'm not a Jags fan.
He's not a Jags
That's
fan
fair.
anymore.
That's fair.
He's state media, not state media, but media. He can't.
Jesus.
I know.
Yeah, I mean, state media would be working with the Jaguars themselves, so we don't know anybody like Osher or whatever to be state media. We love
Yeah,
those
no
guys
state
though.
media on
They
this
they
one.
do the work for real.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, they're great people.
I'm just I know it's early, but if Brian Thomas is good, I'm getting a throwback to if well he needs to switch his number because he's at 80 right now, but he needs to take that love from Parker Washington and just
You
say
don't
this
want
is
the
mine
legacy
now.
of Mike Thomas to be continued by Brian Thomas.
He just needs to not have the Julius Thomas legacy and we'll be all
Oh,
right.
that's right. This is the third Thomas wearing number 80. That's crazy. I forgot about Julius Thomas. Thank God
So-
I did.
Franchise. What a franchise.
This franchise sometimes for real.
But yeah, that's it for jersey. So we can talk a little about off the grid. Which John, do you still have the shirt on?
I'd still have the shirt on because it's very on topic. I didn't expect, on a random Tuesday of all days to just start all the beef of all beefs. What are your thoughts about everything that's happened over I guess over the past 3 weeks, or I guess month now, with the original diss to now?
I mean, it's like really the past 10 years, right? Going back to control,
Mhm.
and Drake took that personally.
I
That's
took
all I
that
gotta say about
personally.
that, man. He took that personally. I think it was great. I mean, I think that, and I've listened to rap for a while, you guys know this, but also I've kind of not been recently. I've just
Mhm.
kind of like lost interest for a bit, and this has pulled me back in. I'm entertained. It's fun to see these because like even I'm a Kendrick fan. I'm pulling for Kendrick in this, but like I do think that
I'm
this,
biased too,
yeah,
so we got
obviously.
two very biased people
But
here.
I think this brings the best out of Drake though. I mean, aside from AI using Tupac and getting cease and desisted, but like when he as a like he is a passionate artist when it comes to getting in feuds. Like he is very good when this kind of stuff heats up. So it's
Mhm.
fun.
Yeah, and not can't do any much more than getting your back against the wall to getting 6 minutes, actually 19 minutes of pure hatred potentially out there. Like people legit could see you could put another portion of this like song. You could put another Kendrick could put another portion of the song out before Drake even responds. Like how much somebody said like 19 minutes of like just dissing is like crazy to me. How much hatred does this man truly have for I mean, Drake, there's a lot, with Drake that you can definitely say that has been said and speculated out there that you're like, yeah, I don't want to get too out of it because that's just a very messy situation to kind of just unblock.
Yeah, I don't want to get into the allegations.
What about you, Javal? I know you're loving the memes too.
I mean, personally, in terms of music, I think that I've never been the biggest Kendrick fan. I think he's talented. It's not so much I think he's trash. I just listen to him and I know he's talented, but I've never been I love Kendrick, but at the same time, I think, it's cool. I don't really am taking sides. I'm on the sidelines just observing. I don't really have a stake in this fight. I'm kind of just, memes are funny.
Yeah.
People are
Memes
just
are great.
calling. I
I'm
think
used
it
to
is funny.
tribalism, guys. I have an AEW poster on the wall and trying to just see like a bunch of social media stuff. Like I try to mute out all of the pro AEW, pro WWE accounts because wrestling Twitter is some of the most toxic bullshit you can possibly
I mean, just
engage
you
in.
could have
And
just
yeah.
you don't need to say you could just say Twitter is the most toxic. You just
Yeah,
left that sentence right
but
there.
if it's just in the sense of like professional wrestling, like I guess because yeah, I got Kendrick stands and Drake stands. Drake stands are some of the biggest beat writers I ever seen in
You
this
mean Aubrey
goddamn.
Angels? Aubrey's Angels?
Like,
Jesus.
I didn't know that was the thing. I feel like I should wash my ears after hearing that term
The
for
famous
this
actor we once
fans.
knew. That's
Exactly.
crazy.
It's crazy, but like I'm just used to the tribalism on the app. No matter what I engage in, Jags, wrestling, music, whatever. So just try not to engage with all that and just kind of consuming like you have your likes there so you can see some of the stuff that I like where it's just like, it's just taking the piss out of Drake because Drake as a person has always been kind of criticized more than the art. The artist is great. I have Drake songs on my playlist too. I admit this man can make some pretty good songs, but as a person, there's definitely some, valid questions about his character.
I'm just saying, I'm gonna enjoy listening to Drake's music now before we get a surviving Drizzy documentary in 10 years. So I'm trying to enjoy the music before
Oh,
it's not cool to listen to it. That's the only thing right
we're
now.
we're going our full R. Kelly, Dan Schneider arc with Drake right now. I'll
The
listen to
good thing with
Jumpman.
Drake,
I'll listen to Back to Back as much as possible before it's not cool to listen to it anymore too.
the good thing with Drake is like it's kind of like Kanye. Like people
Mm-hmm.
like he got canceled, but it's still cool to listen to all of his older music. Good thing
Mm-hmm.
with Drake is he hasn't made anything good since 2017. So
Wait, hey.
Whoa.
I'm not his meat munchers, but he does have some good songs. I didn't really care for his
What
albums
when
that
you
much,
drop
but
50 songs a year or 50 features a year, you're
Yeah,
bound to hit
you're
them.
down.
I mean, yeah, I don't disagree, but
Dang,
I'm
bro
just
said keep taking the shots. You miss 100% of the shots you don't make. That's what Wayne Gretzky, Michael Scott, now Drake. That's
Yeah,
crazy.
man.
That's
but
crazy. I wouldn't even go
well,
that far.
I probably am exaggerating a little bit, but I'm doing my best John Shipley impersonation.
That was a very good
I
John
don't know if
Shipley
you're
impersonation.
pessimistic enough, but
Yeah, you're
you're
right.
getting there.
Yeah, you were super positive about the Jaguars more than Shipley will
Yeah,
ever be
that
recently.
is fair.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
fair. That's fair.
kind of unrelated but related breaking news. The Steelers
Uh-oh.
declined the fifth year option on Najee Harris. So ETN got his fifth year option picked up. Najee did it. So
They picked Najee over Travis
okay.
Etienne. They were the ones who made the mistake over us. Sorry to your Steelers
Jeez.
family for that, Zach, but
No,
hey,
hey,
we did
good
something.
riddance. I told them the entire time that like this guy is like a fun college back and Kenny Pickett was a cool story coming from Pittsburgh, but like this is seriously the offense you guys are excited about?
I
Like,
mean, we saw it in
like,
person watching the Jaguars play the Steelers last year. That was some of the most terroristic offensive football I've ever seen in
And
my
we had to
life.
watch Press Taylor for 17 games. We know what terroristic outfit how it can look. So
Yeah. That was on a whole nother level there in Pittsburgh, but for some reason,
Jesus.
Mason Rudolph made the playoffs over Trevor Lawrence. So I guess I blame Andrew Wingard for now and forever for throwing that terrible towel,
that's
waving
okay.
those towels
They
in the
didn't
air.
do anything anyways. So
Yeah, but still, we got to hear it for like a week and a half. Pickenberg, whatever the
and then they
fuck.
got destroyed in the playoffs. So
That's true.
Congratulations.
I know. You get to continue your annual bullshit playoff appearance just to get their ass beat in round one, as always.
This was this podcast all about pure hate right here. But
Speaking of
I
pure
hate the
hate,
way that you talk.
Javal,
I hate the way that you talk.
I don't want to bring too much
Sorry.
negativity, but I want to talk about your Miami Heat, just not to rug
No,
it on, because you also
is this disconnect? Hold on, what I can't is
no, but what is the future? What do you think your team's like ideal future looks like? Because I don't want to get too negative because every time I bring up negativity toward a team that I don't like, it usually will backfire against me because the Magic still have a game to play tomorrow. And the worst
John.
case scenarios will happen if I start making fun of your Heat now. So I want to
There
see what your ideal kind of offseason is. Like, is there a trade candidate that Miami fans are excited for? Is there like a move you could make in the front office? Because I know Pat Riley is going to continue sacrificing the blood of children to continue to stay
And
alive,
and
keep power.
and I don't know if you saw it yesterday on Twitter, which means it's totally true, but you're gonna have to keep up with the Magic. They're gonna sign Paul George.
No, it's no. So I will get to that later because it's interesting how those conversations started. But I want to see what your true thoughts about your Miami Heat are now that your guys' season is like finally, thankfully
I,
over for you.
I have two thoughts. One, the only South Florida team I care about is currently on the second round. Go Panthers. I do not care about the Heat right now. And two,
Go Panthers.
whether they trade for anybody or run it back, they need to fire the medical staff because right before the playoffs or in the playoffs, guys always get hurt. They literally had both. They traded for Terry Rozier, got hurt, not even in the game, but he just had a neck injury. He never got to play in series. Duncan got hurt with a back injury. The medical staff is just literally bottom tier. So I don't know. I don't want to talk about this team, man. I as much pain as the Jags cause me, I could talk about them for all time. The Heat,
Yeah.
I'm tired of this BS, man. Thing with the Jags is that them being bad, it makes me upset, but it's not surprising. The Heat being bad, y'all should be so much better. So I'm just I don't want to think about it, man. The only thing is they just have to shake. If they run this back, they have to fire someone in the medical staff. That's all I ask. So
I
I
mean,
don't want to talk about it.
I don't blame you. It's just weird because your team never like truly wants to rebuild. But I feel like that's a lot of big market NBA teams because the expectations and the bar is always way too damn high that the teams that have been just rebuilding for a little bit, your OKCs, your Minnesotas, hopefully, for my sake, the Orlando Magic, they're getting up there and getting wins every year and starting to get some sustainable playoff success because they had time to get a core group of players, young, potential players. Because the league is as talented as there's so much talent in this league now that as long as you have like team cohesion and you're have good enough scouts to get some really good players on your team, that'll be more than just a forced big three like Philadelphia was like Philadelphia. They might be on the brink, but they had past big threes in the past like Simmons and Jimmy Butler, your Joel Embiid. A lot of those teams just don't work anymore, or just this year, LA, out in the first round, Phoenix out in the first round. Other teams in the East, Miami, they try to make a big three all offseason not to make it. They're eliminated. So, forcing a big three can sometimes do you more harm than good. Milwaukee, it's not their fault that they're 3-1 down or 3-2 down in a series right now against Indiana because Giannis is hurt, but still, that's kind of pushing your chips kind of too much into one place, that one part falling apart and not having a good team around, like, three guys that you're paying hundreds of millions to every single year might not be the sustainable way to go anymore.
I mean, I guess when I think of the big three era, to me, we really need players to be to fit. I just remember looking at talk about the Lakers when they made that trade for Russell Westbrook a couple of seasons ago, and everyone was saying, "Well, Russ doesn't shoot well; he's not going to be a great fit." And everyone kind of knew it was going to be great on the outside, and then it wasn't great. Same thing with the Suns, where they have three guys who can get you a bucket in Bradley Beal and Booker and KD, but they didn't have a true point guard, and then Beal never really fit. So I don't even think a big three. If you play three players, they all have to fit together. So that's really the big thing. I mean, with the Heat, I think their players kind of fit together, but they just always needed a true guard, and they traded for a point guard, and then he got hurt 15 games in, didn't get to play in the playoffs. So I had to watch Tyler Hero run point guard. So Are we done now? That's the thing. Talking about the Jags, I can talk about for a long time. I don't care. I just want to fast forward to when they are inevitably competitive again, which will be next season. But there's just, it's not full on purgatory, but sometimes it feels that way. Where they're not going to care about the regular season. But
Yeah.
hey, we have the second best Nikola Yo itch in the league. So I just care about the young guys developing. So
Yeah,
go
the second
Jokic.
best Eastern European player in the NBA named Nikola. There you go.
Yeah, Vucci Mane is washed now, so
Gucci
he
Mane,
he
yeah,
took that title.
he
But
did.
Yeah, Magic great.
I
I
know.
just
I don't know. Like, Zach brought up like Paul George too. I think the only reason why those Sox are starting is because Paul George had a podcast recently where he talked about
podcast
promising
P.
young, yeah, podcast P exactly, where he just brought up the Orlando Magic kind of, like without like reason that he's praising a bunch of the young players. It kind of lines up where the Magic will have salary cap if they decline the player options of a Gary Harris and a Joe Ingles, which you can definitely see Orlando doing trying to get
No more
any
jingles.
no much.
That makes him
I
a
love
perfect fit.
Jingles. I love Grandpa, but the biggest problem if you ever watch a single Magic game throughout this postseason run is our shooting is way too inconsistent. If we just made one more open three 2 days ago when we
I have a
played.
guy who I can send to. He's already in the state of Florida. If y'all need another shooter, so I
Oh
know a guy who
no.
can help out.
But like a starting, like a true like starting shooting guard, because you already have a bunch of facilitators around there and Powell and Franz. You can live with those two guys being the primary facilitators, depending on what certain matchup it is. But you don't have a consistent shooter around, your Jalen Suggs, who's an elite defender, inconsistent shooting at times, especially in Cleveland so far this series. You know. Got some very talented defensive front court guys, and Wendell Carter Jr., who may have his problem rebounding sometimes, but he's a very, very good defender. Jonathan Isaac might be the best defender in the whole league when he's healthy and out there doing, ridiculous things, trying to cover all five positions
He
at
he he
once.
was defending. He was defending them on January 6th for sure. That's great
Jesus
defender.
Christ.
Hey man, you gotta call on your shots
All
because your
right.
season's over.
It's okay.
Yeah. Hey, you're just not used to
So
Orlando Magic fans
he was there
having.
with Gabe Davis at January 6th, so it's all right.
What are those allegations? Wait, I'm not privy to the
Oh, you're not
January 6th
familiar with
Gabe
the Gabe
Davis
Davis stuff. That's
allegations.
So
I'm
crazy.
still
someone just
too
said
new.
that Gabe picked 0 because that's close to get to Q. I'm just gonna leave it at that. So
Apparently, he during his time at UCF, he might have made some dumb decisions and social media posts during his time at UCF, where he could have aligned himself with some pretty extreme right wing people there on campus. But
go Knights,
yeah,
baby.
go,
Charge on.
charge on, baby,
I'm I'm
charge on.
I'm I'm just saying,
He's
John.
the messenger. Javal's the messenger. We're just
When
here.
Jonathan Isaac and Cole Anthony get traded for Tyler Hero, I told you so.
Oh my God, this
I
guy.
mean, no, he actually would not be bad
He
though
would
for his
actually
size.
not be bad, but we can't get like Jonathan Isaac is basically untouchable in Orlando, and any
I'm just
Magic
I feel
fan will
for the
tell you that.
Magic's point of view, he actually would fit really well because y'all have good defenders, so even if he's the weak link. So that's but are we doing talking about basketball? I don't want to think about the Heat anymore now.
All right, but I'll leave it at this. Orlando just really needs a shooter, and if we somehow got Paul George, I'm gonna be super happy. I don't think it's gonna happen because I'm not gonna get my hopes up too much. Malik Monk and Clay Thompson were free agents that you can easily throw money to because they're unrestricted and they have a choice to come to Orlando. Those seem like more likely options than like a Paul George. But if you got like a Paul George, Anthony Simmons, who was named because he was born in Central Florida and his parents were big Magic fans, he was rotting in Portland and he doesn't want to lose anymore. I'd love that in Orlando. Freaking Trey Young or anyone to really be a shooter next to some of the core players in Orlando already without giving up a Jonathan Isaac or Jalen Suggs, I'd be super happy. Even if that means giving up Wendell Carter Jr., you can kind of draft someone at wherever the Magic will be picking at the end of the middle or end of the first round that you can kind of play center, and I'll be okay with that.
I'm
That's
working
just
on
me
my jump
looking too
shot,
far ahead.
so if
Hey
Matt
man,
I can show up to a tryout, I haven't taken a lot of threes.
Yeah.
can you shoot
I'm gonna,
40% from wide open threes? Then you're in, Javal. That's
I'm
that's
working
all
on
I'm
it.
saying.
Let me get hot and then I'll do what I can. But once again, shout out to our wonderful guest Zach Goodall. Zach, tell people where they can find you. They need to follow. Well, they need to follow you, so they know where they can follow you.
Yeah, you guys can find me over on Twitter. It's always Twitter. I celebrated my 10-year Twitter anniversary the other day, and they made me put together that post. They
Oh
said my
God, they
X
made you do it,
anniversary.
or I just
Well, I mean, like
refuse it.
they give it. I guess it's not make, but they
Yeah.
give it to you to post. But like, it doesn't get the little emoji at the end if you don't do X anniversary. So like, I made sure to make note after it'll always be Twitter. But yeah, I mean, that's wild. I've been in that hellhole for 10 years, and I'm not getting out anytime soon. It's Zach spelled Zach underscore Goodall, not related to Roger Goodell.
Uh,
That's come up before. No,
are you serious? People really like that? Goodall is
dude,
not
right?
Goodell.
Like
Goodall is not
it's
Goodell.
literally not. Like, and I don't know if I'm related to Jane Goodall or not. I'm trying to figure that out. I've been, but that's at least like plausible. Goodell, hell out of here. Like, no, no. But yeah, all my work's over there. All my written work is at jaguarswire.usatoday.com. Appreciate you guys having me on.
Yeah, now that I had so much about the Magic, they're gonna lose at home on Friday, and I'll be sad. So Javal, if that happens, you can add Keanu all you want in the Jaguars group chat, and I will feel bad.
I don't want to be toxic, but
But
Wait, is
sometimes it's
this?
calling my
I'm
name.
sorry. I'm sorry. I have to bring up a harsh topic. Not harsh.
okay.
I know back in the day there was a big Twitter Jags group chat and I was never allowed in it.
Uh-oh. Oh God,
That
we're getting well, nobody ever really watches this far on, but yeah, no, people really set some lines. I can't remember who it was
Hey, it's
specifically.
okay.
It might or may not be that person, but I know there was some lines drawn back in the day because of that.
Listen,
It's
jealousy
okay,
is the
Zach.
most
You're in my
sincere
group
form of
chat. That's all
flattery.
that matters.
I know, I need to be in a
Exactly.
group chat. Oh, we were in a group chat together, OG. Zach is one of my OGs too. That brought me along to a lot of those group chats in the first place. So if it wasn't for Zach, if it wasn't for Javal, I would not be in where I'm at today. That's all I'm saying.
Hey, I can say the same thing with you guys too. I mean, if I didn't hang out with Jags Twitter when I was in late high school, post high school, like I don't know if I'd be doing what I followed for my career. Like that was so formative in the community there, and like people that were supporting my work. I'd probably be working some stupid 9 to 5 right now rather than sports journalism. So like that little joke aside about the group chat, like I'm obviously again like so thrilled, so excited to be here and reconnecting with you guys and with everyone and obviously giving this coverage everything I've got.
Hey man, and we appreciate you for really putting your heart and effort to whether that was to Gators or the Jaguars. That it's awesome seeing you thrive and being in this new position now. And hopefully the Jaguars don't have to make you suffer too much toward the rest of the year, but that is always to be determined knowing this football team.
With this team, yeah, it's really to be determined.
Literally so far so good because I talked to John, Gus, and some of these other guys, and uh, we're fortunate to only cover 9 picks this year compared to 13 last year. Those guys were in the depths of hell last year when they had to cover 13
Yeah,
picks
we
in
talked to Mia
person.
O'Brien last year around this time, and
Yeah.
she looked like she was in hell. So.
Yeah, yeah. So it could have been worse to get to start. So far, so good.
All right, guys, we'll leave you for the rest of your day. I had a lot of fun. Like I said, I was at my end of my social battery at the end of my work shift. So just talking to two of my good friends that I've known since 2017. God damn, it's been almost full fucking decade since I've known you guys. And I always love and to talk to you guys as well, especially Zach, so I haven't really talked too much in almost a year. I know you and Javal talk more, personally than me and you, Zach. So I really appreciate catching up with you today and getting, some of your insight to this,
Yeah, man.
draft class for sure.
I'm glad to have caught up with you too, and I'll be seeing you and getting to talk to you a lot more here soon. Jamal,
Let's go.
All
All
right,
right,
well,
bad
guys.
heart.
Have a good rest of your day. I love you all.
Later.
take
See you guys.
care.